Recording by David Kleperick. Famous Men of the Middle Ages by Jonh H. Harren and A.B. Poland. Preface. The study of history, like the study of the landscape, should begin with the most conspicuous features. Not until these have been fixed in memory will the lesser features fall into their appropriate places and assume their right proportions. The famous men of ancient and modern times are the mountain peaks of history. It is logical, then, that the study of history should begin with the biographies of these men. Not only is it logical, it is also pedagogical. Experience has proven that in order to attract and hold the child's attention, each conspicuous feature of history presented to him should have an individual for its center. The child identifies himself with the personage presented. It is not Romulus or Hercules or Alexander that the child has in mind when he reads, but himself acting under similar conditions. Prominent educators, appreciating these truths, have long recognized the value of biography as a preparation for the study of history and have given it an important place in their scheme of studies. The former practice in many elementary schools of beginning the detailed study of American history without any previous knowledge of general history limited the pupil's range of vision, restricted his sympathies, and left him without material for comparisons. Moreover, it denied him a knowledge of his inheritance from the Greek philosopher, the Roman lawgiver, the Teutonic lover of freedom. Hence, the recommendation so strongly urged in the report of the Committee of 10, and emphasized also in the report of the Committee of 15, that the study of Greek, Roman, and modern European history in the form of biography should precede the study of detailed American history in our elementary schools. The Committee of 10 recommends an 8 years course in history, beginning with the 5th year in school and continuing to the end of the high school course. The first 2 years in this course are given wholly to the study of biography and mythology. The Committee of 15 recommends that history be taught in all the grades of the elementary school, and emphasizes the value of biography and of general history. The series of historical stories, to which this volume belongs, was prepared in conformity with the foregoing recommendations, and with the best practice of leading schools. It has been the aim of the authors to make an interesting story of each man's life, and to tell these stories in a style so simple that pupils in the lower grades will read them with pleasure, and so dignified that they may be used with profit as textbooks for reading. Teachers who find it impracticable to give the study of mythology and biography a place of its own in an already overcrowded curriculum usually prefer to correlate history with reading, and for this purpose the volumes of this series will be found most desirable. The value of the illustrations can scarcely be overestimated. They will be found to surpass in number and excellence anything heretofore offered in a school book. For the most part, they are reproductions of world-famous pictures, and for that reason the artist's name are generally affixed. End of preface. Recorded by David Kleperick.
Chapter 1 of Famous Men of the Middle Ages. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Leon Meyer. Famous Men of the Middle Ages by Jonh H. Harren and A.B. Poland. Chapter 1. The Gods of the Tutans. In the little volume called The Famous Men of Rome, you have read about the great empire which the Romans established. Now we come to a time when the power of Rome was broken, and tribes of barbarians who lived north of the Danube and the Rhine took possession of lands that had been part of the Roman Empire. These tribes were the Goths, Vandals, Huns, Franks, and Anglo-Saxons. From them have come the greatest nations of modern times. All except the Huns belong to the same race, and are known as Teutons. They were warlike, savage, and cruel. They spoke the same language, though in different dialects, and worshipped the same gods. Like the old Greeks and Romans, they had many gods. Woden, who was also called Odin, was the greatest of all. His name means mighty warrior, and he was king of all the gods. He rode through the air, mounted on Sleipnir, an 8-footed horse, fleeter than the eagle. When the tempest roared, the Teutons said it was the snorting of Sleipnir. When their ships came safely into port, they said it was Woden's breath that had filled their sails and wafted their vessels over the blue waters. Thor, a son of Woden, ranked next to him among the gods. He rode through the air in a chariot drawn by goats. The Germans called him Donner and Thunner, words which are like our word thunder. From this we can see that he was the thunder god. In his hand he carried a wonderful hammer which always came back to his hand when he threw it. Its head was so bright that as it flew through the air it made the lightning. When it struck the vast ice mountains, they reeled and splintered into fragments, and thus Thor's hammer made thunder. Another great god of our ancestors was Tiyu. He was a son of Woden and was the god of battle. He was armed with a sword which flashed like lightning when he brandished it. A savage chief named Attila routed the armies of the Romans and so terrified all the world that he was called the Scourge of God. His people believed that he gained his victories because he had the sword of Tiyu, which a herdsman chanced to find where the god had allowed it to fall. The Teutons prayed to Tiyu when they went into battle. Freya was the wife of Woden and the queen of the gods. She ruled the bright clouds that gleam in the summer sky, and caused them to pour their showers on meadow and forest and mountain. 4 of the days of the week are named after these gods. Tuesday means the day of Tiyu, Wednesday the day of Woden, Thursday the day of Thor, and Friday the day of Freya. Freya's son was Balder, who was the favorite of all the gods. Only Loki, the spirit of evil, hated him. Balder's face was as bright as sunshine. His hair gleamed like burnished gold. Wherever he went, night was turned into day. One morning, when he looked toward earth from his father Woden's palace, black clouds covered the sky, but he saw a splendid rainbow reaching down from the clouds to the earth. Balder walked upon this rainbow from the home of the gods to the dwellings of men. The rainbow was a bridge upon which the gods used to come to earth. When Balder stepped from the rainbow bridge to the earth, he saw a king's daughter so beautiful that he fell in love with her. But an earthly prince had also fallen in love with her, so he and Balder fought for her hand. Balder was a god and hence was very much stronger than the prince. But some of Balder's magic food was given to the prince and it made him as strong as Balder. Freya heard about this and feared that Balder was doomed to be killed. So she went to every beast on the land, and every fish of the sea, and every bird of the air, and to every tree of the wood, and every plant of the field, and made each promise not to hurt Balder. But she forgot the mistletoe. So Loki, who always tried to do mischief, made an arrow of mistletoe, and gave it to the prince, who shot and killed Balder with it. Then all the gods wept, the summer breeze wailed, the leaves fell from the sorrowing trees, the flowers faded and died from grief, and the earth grew stiff and cold. Bruin the bear and his neighbors, the hedgehogs and squirrels, crept into holes and refused to eat for weeks and weeks. The pleasure of all living things in Balder's presence means the happiness that the sunlight brings. The sorrow of all living things at his death means the gloom of northern countries when winter comes. The Valkyries were beautiful female warriors. They had some of Woden's own strength, and were armed with helmet and shield and spear. Like Woden, they rode unseen through the air, and their horses were almost as swift as Sleipnir himself. They swiftly carried Woden's favorite warriors to Valhalla, the hall of the slain. The walls of Valhalla were hung with shields, its ceiling glittered with polished spearheads. From its 540 gates, each wide enough for 800 men abreast to march through, the warriors rushed every morning to fight a battle that lasted till nightfall and began again at the break of each day. When the heroes returned to Valhalla, the Valkyries served them with goblets of mead such as Woden drank himself. The Teutons believed that before there were any gods or any world, there was a great empty space where the world now is. It was called by the curious name Ginnungagap, which means a yawning abyss. To the north of Ginnungagap it was bitterly cold. Nothing was there but fields of snow and mountains of ice. To the south of Ginnungagap was a region where frost and snow were never seen. It was always bright and was the home of light and heat. The sunshine from the south melted the ice mountains of the north so that they toppled over and fell into Ginnungagap. There they were changed into a frost giant, whose name was Ymir. He had 3 sons. They and their father were so strong that the gods were afraid of them. So Woden and his brothers killed Ymir. They broke his body in pieces and made the world of them. His bones and teeth became mountains and rocks. His hair became leaves for trees and plants. Out of his skull was made the sky. But Ymir was colder than ice, and the earth that was made of his body was so cold that nothing could live or grow upon it. So the gods took sparks from the home of light and set them in the sky. 2 big ones were the sun and moon, and the little ones were the stars. Then the earth became warm. Trees grew and flowers bloomed, so that the world was a beautiful home for men. Of all the trees, the most wonderful was a great ash tree, sometimes called the World Tree. Its branches covered the earth and reached beyond the sky till they almost touched the stars. Its roots ran in 3 directions: to heaven, to the frost giant's home, and to the underworld, beneath the earth. Near the roots in the dark underworld sat the Norns or Fates. Each held a bowl with which she dipped water out of a sacred spring and poured it upon the roots of the ash tree. This was the reason why the wonderful tree was always growing, and why it grew as high as the sky. When Woden killed Ymir, he tried to kill all Ymir's children too, but one escaped, and ever after he and his family, the frost giants, tried to do mischief and fought against the gods and men. According to the beliefs of the Teutons, these wicked giants will someday destroy the beautiful world. Even the gods themselves will be killed in a dreadful battle with them. First of all will come 3 terrible winters without any spring or summer. The sun and moon will cease to shine, and the bright stars will fall from the sky. The earth will be shaken, as when there is a great earthquake. The waves of the sea will roar, and the highest mountains will totter and fall. The trees will be torn up by the roots, and even the World Tree will tremble from its roots to its topmost boughs. At last the quivering earth will sink beneath the waters of the sea. Then Loki, the spirit of evil, will break loose from the fetters with which the gods have bound him. The frost giants will join him. They will try to make a secret attack on the gods. But Heimdall, the sentry of heaven, will be on guard at the end of the rainbow bridge. He needs no more sleep than a bird, and can see for 100 miles either by day or night. He only can sound the horn whose blast can be heard through heaven and earth and the underworld. Loki and his army will be seen by him. His loud alarm will sound and bring the gods together. They will rush to meet the giants. Woden will wield his spear, Tiyu his glittering sword, Thor his terrible hammer. These will all be in vain. The gods must die. But so must the giants and Loki. And then a new earth will rise from the sea. The leaves of its forests will never fall. Its fields will yield harvests unsown. And in a hall far brighter than Woden's Valhalla, the brave and good will be gathered forever.